David Wilcock Update, August 24, 2015. Terrifying global events, triggers for mass awakening? The Alliance vs. Cabal battle for disclosure is really heating up. China just had a second chemical explosion right as the market is sliding into free fall. The Dow dropped over 530 points on Friday and another 588 points on Monday's close. These events are starting to produce the huge headlines many different insiders have been forecasting. Intelligent galactic energy may ultimately be pushing us through a mass awakening. This socio-economic analysis of recent events is a gateway into a much greater cosmic drama that is playing itself out at this time. Live radio show tonight, and new book announced. We are about to appear on Live Radio with Jimmy Church tonight, Monday, August 24th at 7 p.m. PST, to discuss this investigation and the vast context surrounding it. We are also proud to announce that David's third book, the epic sequel to Source Field and Synchronicity Key, will be available as a mass-market release in 2016. Finally, after two scientific books that set the stage, we will really get into the details, the difference between the gradual and spontaneous ascension models, the cosmic history of our solar system, and exactly what we can expect in the coming years. The art is an Android Jones original that we commissioned as the beta cover for the Source Field investigations. We are somewhere approximately in the bouger dangling from the nose. We are frickin' done, enough is enough. We have been beaten and abused for too long. We are tired and fed up. It is time for a change. No more violence, pain and fear. This is it. We are finally learning what is wrong. Many, if not most of us, are now pulling together, in whatever way we can, to help solve the problem. The NSA disclosures were just the beginning. How does some guy peeping through your cyber cameras help to defeat Arabs with box cutters? As I said to a supporter in the health food store the other day, if you are working to help spread the truth to others, you are part of the alliance. It is that simple. Events are accelerating. Events are accelerating on Earth now at a tremendous pace. This looks very similar to the beginning of the 2008 collapse. This is looking an awful lot like the beginning of the 2008 collapse, which basically wiped out everyone's assets by half, if they had any to begin with. As a personal example, a family inheritance that would have given me a decent little extra income was utterly destroyed by the 2008 crash. Now whenever one of the checks come in, it is worth little more than laughter and paper airplanes. Many people are already suffering so badly that these headlines may seem far away from anything they care about. In a case like this, it does seem that those with something to lose will be hit much harder than those who have already lost everything. This will create a healing. These economic headlines are only a very small part of all the wild stuff going on, which we will be discussing. Given the overall series of events and how they are lining up, it is unlikely that this is going to just go away, though the ups and downs may be dramatic. Either way, these disconcerting events are actually staring us into a solution. As strange and upsetting as many of these events can appear, there is every reason to believe that something positive will come out of all this. We can't change the fact that there are some very negative people on Earth. People who want to kill billions of us. Literally. They are out there. They are real. And they have been working very, very hard to achieve their goals, with an astonishing scope and depth of power. These events are precisely what we need to finally expose and defeat the negative agenda once and for all. Everyone goes through resistance as they learn this. Everyone has initial resistance as they are confronted with this information. It is very natural, if not inevitable. I certainly went through it myself. I spent weeks, if not months, feeling deeply saddened and traumatized, not to mention extremely paranoid and fearful. However, once you break through and really get it, you are amazed you didn't see it before, as the signs are all around us. The evidence is voluminous, overwhelming and obvious. Fear is what holds us back from accepting reality. There is a hidden thread weaving together the trail of beads left behind in so many headlines we see every day. Learning and accepting the truth, and doing whatever you can to counteract it, is a key part of the awakening process. A final biting through, Some of what you are about to read may seem terrifying. I would strongly encourage you to stay with me and not click away until you hear it all out. We may be witnessing a final biting through phase that will need to take place, globally, in order to sever the leash that has been choking us for so long. Now is not the time to say I know something is wrong, but somebody else is going to deal with it. If you haven't figured it out by now, we are it. That somebody is you. It is us. Now is the time for unity, not division. Particularly when we are this close. The presence of organized crime on such a vast scale requires us to sort out our differences and work towards a mutually beneficial solution. It is becoming obvious, the heretofore covert economic battle between the secret Earth government syndicates, or cabal, and an international alliance working for peace is becoming very obvious. There are multiple negative factions with differing agendas. The one thing they have always agreed upon is secrecy. Multiple groups are breaking away from the negative cabal and are part of an alliance restoring peace on Earth. They duke it out behind the scenes, but none of them want the game to end. And once the public discovers the truth, they have run out of time. Now, members of formerly compromised groups and factions have broken away and are fighting to restore peace and prosperity on Earth. When people say there is no evidence for this escalating insider war, they simply have not put the time in to connect the dots. We have been quietly building a robust collection of evidence for some time now, waiting for the right moment. With the events that have just taken place in the last few weeks, it became obvious that the time is now. There is a common theme. It's dark, but so is the reality of the situation. The common theme in this investigation is that the Western financial and political system has been under the control of a Luciferian cabal. Other cabal factions consider themselves Christian, and vociferously oppose the Luciferian factions, but they themselves have still done very negative things. You may feel ambivalent about Christianity and religion in general. However, the Luciferian factions are very devoted to their own belief system. They feel Lucifer is the good guy. They deeply and fervently believe this. They feel the universe is a cruel and terrifying place, and that God abandoned us. Lucifer, in their religion, teaches us to become God where none existed. And once you're a God, all others not within your elite circle are worthless enemies. We are being bombarded with their propaganda in video games, movies and music videos, as well as public ceremonies like the Super Bowl halftime show. Yep, it's cheesy, but it's still the truth. Once the truth comes out on a widespread level, people will truly be shocked that such groups actually existed, and had gained so much power. It seems like a really bad B-movie. I get that. It's almost cheesy. But it's true. This is what is really going on. And standing up to these people can get you killed. Very easily. That makes it all the more exciting. You may think this is all ridiculous, but some part of you also wants to make damn sure they don't try to murder you, just in case it's true, you know. There are plenty of terrifying movies that have programmed you to be deeply afraid of the monster under the bed that is the government. Thankfully, there is spiritual protection for those who live a virtuous life. The cabal would have killed me, and others doing what I'm doing, a long time ago if they could. However, they can only do what they are authorized to do. There are bigger kids on the playground who consistently stop them from stepping over the line. The cabal's members all know this, and they call it the rules. They have sinister goals, but are being successfully opposed. These various cabal groups, which the Alliance calls secret Earth government syndicates, have been creating false disasters to gain power. They create the problem, study the reaction and then present us with a solution that furthers their goals. Let's say they want to take away our guns. They create a mass shooting, harness the outrage and demand that no one but the government has guns. Another classic example would be when Hitler bombed his own radio station and blamed it on Poland. He then used this as a pretext to invade them. During the Nuremberg trials, Nazi soldiers spilled the beans on the whole thing. It is known as the Gleiwitz incident. Weather warfare is another example of their strategies in action. These negative strategies work very well. They are being used constantly. The cabal worships death and fear, and creates disasters to get the results they want. Their manufactured catastrophes can take a variety of forms, including faked terrorist attacks. Weather warfare is another key aspect of what they are doing, creating hurricanes, typhoons and earthquakes through the use of advanced technology. This may seem like pseudoscience to you, but it is very real. It has remained classified for many years, but the basic principles are simple enough for children to understand. We will summarize some of the evidence in Section 2. An international alliance has bankrupted the cabal. Thankfully, the cabal is effectively bankrupt. That will be another key part of our story in this investigation. An international alliance has been making a quiet but systematic effort to cut off every avenue of financing available to the cabal. Russia is leading the pack. The highly bizarre drop in gas prices last winter was yet another epic cabal attempt to destroy them that failed. We have some links describing that event coming up here in just a minute. I knew things were really heating up when the pump prices plunged, because it was a suicide leap for the cabal. They desperately needed that oil money too. Insiders told me Putin and the Chinese both had spent years building up a gold reserve in case something like this happened, and it did. A brief collection of headlines, so enough talk. Let's have the first round of data and get on with it. We will start you out with a tasting menu of some hors d'oeuvres you can use in your blogs, posts, videos and shifty-eyed quiet conversations. These are some of the most notable headlines we collected between late September 2014 to mid-February 2015, revealing what is going on. If you are interested in all the backstory and context behind these links, I explain them in our current and upcoming episodes of Wisdom Teachings on Gay IMTV. The visible public war between the Alliance and the cabal really picked up beginning in June 2015, as we will discuss after this introductory section. We will keep these data points in chronological order except for the fourth link down, right here in the beginning. Some of what you will be seeing are headlines that the Alliance was able to push through the formerly impenetrable media firewall built up by the cabal. 921, NY Times, are ISIS and CIA united? 924, terrorism financed by HSBC and JP Morgan. 924. Video evidence Turkish TV staged ISIS beheadings, 7/11 staged ISIS beheading video leaked from McCain staffer, you must see it to believe it. 925, Greenwald exposes NSA agenda to destroy journalists. In his most recent article, Greenwald explains how JTRIG utilizes false flag operations to inject all sorts of false material onto the internet in order to destroy the reputation of its targets. The intelligence operation posts falsely attributed material to undermine reputations, creates fake victim blog posts, pretending to be a victim of the individual whose reputation they want to destroy, and posts negative information on forums and message boards. Other tactics include arranging sexual honey traps, changing photos of social networking sites, and sending email and text to colleagues, neighbors and friends of targeted individuals. 930 Fed borrowing, printing, $8 trillion a year to survive. I know that headline sounds completely outrageous. But it is actually true. The US government is borrowing about $8 trillion a year, and you are about to see the hard numbers that prove this. When discussing the national debt, most people tend to only focus on the amount that it increases each 12 months. And as I wrote about recently, the U.S. national debt has increased by more than $1 trillion in fiscal year 2014. 10.3, hacker attack cracked 10 financial firms in major assault. The huge cyber attack on JP Morgan Chase that touched more than 83 million households and businesses was one of the most serious computer intrusions into an American corporation. Also troubling is that about 9 other financial institutions, a number that has not been previously reported, were also infiltrated by the same group of overseas hackers, according to people briefed on the matter. The hackers are thought to be operating from Russia and appear to have at least loose connections with officials of the Russian government, the people briefed on the matter said. 10.4, weather warfare assault on California intensifies. The climate engineers continue to hammer California with record heat and drought. Meteorologically speaking, maps like the one below are historically unprecedented. This is what climate engineering can do: fry one location while temporarily cooling another. The geoengineers can and are continuing to cook California under a virtual target of heat and drought. Meteorologists have coined the term ridiculously resilient ridge to describe the engineered HAARP-induced high pressure that is being kept locked in place over the West. Are maps like the one below also meant to send a message with their bullseye of blazing heat centered exactly over the once golden state like a target? 10.5. Ben Affleck, Hollywood is full of CIA agents. 10.5. Hidden government group linking JFK, Watergate, Iran-Contra and 9/11. 10.7. Leading German journalist reveals he worked for CIA, pushing World War. Udo Ulfkott, a former editor of Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, one of the largest newspapers in Germany, admits he worked for the CIA. I've been a journalist for about 25 years, and I've been educated to lie, to betray, and not to tell the truth to the public, Ulfkott told Russia Today. I was supported by the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. Why? Because I am pro-American. He decided to tell the truth about corporate media controlled by the financial class because he fears war in Europe. The German and American media tries to bring war to the people in Europe, to bring war to Russia. This is a point of no return, and I am going to stand up and say, it is not right what I have done in the past, to manipulate people, to make propaganda against Russia. 10.8. Michael Hastings was murdered because he was about to expose 19,000 Swiss bank accounts that fund terrorism. 10.9. Did Satan signal an S&P futures give the all-clear for selling to begin? After a notably weak start to the day, a curious thing happened. Someone cancelled and replaced orders for 666 contracts 26 times in the 11:30 ET to 12 o'clock ET period. And selling accelerated lower, no reversal, to close at the lows on heavy volume. We are sure this is nothing. Just pure coincidence that on the fourth most active trading day in history and on following a huge surge day in stocks not trusted by any other asset class, someone would send, 26 separate times in a few minutes, orders for 666 contracts. Only a tinfoil hat-wearing digital dickweed would see anything odd about that. For everyone else this is merely yet another market anomaly that is best left unmentioned. 10.26. In Cold War, U.S. spy agencies used 1,000 Nazis. Washington, in the decades after World War II, the CIA and other United States agencies employed at least 1,000 Nazis as Cold War spies and informants. As recently as the 1990s, they concealed the government's ties to some still living in America. Newly disclosed records and interviews show. 10.28. Suspicious cyber activity on White House network detected, addressed. Washington, Reuters. Suspicious cyber activity has been detected on the computer network used by the White House and measures have been taken to address it, a White House official disclosed on Tuesday. The official, who spoke on condition of anonymity, would not say who might have been responsible for the activity on what was described as an unclassified computer network used by employees of the Executive Office of the President. 11.8. Nazis helped get us to the moon. The Reagan White House helped keep them in the U.S., Washington. They lived within our borders for years, thousands of miles away from the lives they helped ruin. Serving as cornerstones of America's post-World War II scientific advancement, they worked for NASA and helped develop our rockets, quietly burying their horrific pasts under accolades from the U.S. aeronautics community. These were America's Nazi transplants, scientists, academics and thinkers who were employed by the U.S. government, despite resumes full of horrid atrocities. And, as New York Times reporter Eric Lichtblau reveals in a new book, their genius was considered so valuable that Washington worked to protect them from the consequences of their horrible pasts. 11.9. UBS settles over gold rigging, many other banks to follow. Remember when everyone decried wholesale Libor manipulation as a crazy conspiracy theory? Zero Hedge, January 2009. This makes no sense, Libor by bank. Why? None other than ICAP chief Michael Spencer said they all thought Libor was unmanipulable. As it turns out, not only is Libor manipulable, and a vast rate rigging conspiracy theory is quite possible when everyone's interests are aligned, but it also was massively profitable. And finally, there was the precious metals market, a market which all the Keynesian fanatic paper bugs said was immune from manipulation, be it of the central or commercial bank kind. Sadly, this too conspiracy theory just was crushed into the reality of conspiracy fact. Moments ago the FT reported that alongside admissions of rigging every other market, UBS, always the proverbial first rat in the coal mine, to mix and match metaphors, is about to settle allegations of gold and silver rigging. In other words, it admits it had rigged the gold and silver markets, without of course admitting or denying it did so. 11.18. Germany begins direct trading in Chinese yuan instead of dollars. European companies now have the opportunity to settle trading accounts in Chinese yuan. The Bank of China in Frankfurt has become the first to operate European yuan clearing. Trading costs will be cut as there will be no dollar exchange first. All transactions had to be traded in and out of dollars since World War II, until now. More than 10 German regional and international banks including Deutsche Bank, Commerzbank, DZ Bank AG, and Landesbank Hessen-Thüringen Großzentral, have opened accounts at Bank of China in Frankfurt. 12.3. The U.S. government has a secret system for intercepting patents. Entrepreneurs and established companies alike depend on the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to legally protect their inventions. But the Patent Office has been using a secret system to withhold the approval of some applications. Newly released documents reveal that the office, tasked with evaluating and protecting the rights to intellectual property, has a covert system for delaying controversial or inconvenient patents. DW. This validates insider testimony that we are in a techno-tyranny and only approved inventions ever see the light of day. 12.25. Falling oil prices are badly hurting America's adversaries. Brussels. A plunge in oil prices has sent tremors through the global political and economic order, setting off an abrupt shift in fortunes. This price plunge has bolstered the interests of the United States and pushed several big oil-exporting nations, particularly those hostile to the West, like Russia, Iran and Venezuela, to the brink of financial crisis. The nearly 50% decline in oil prices since June has had the most conspicuous impact on the Russian economy and President Vladimir V. Putin. The former finance minister Alexei Kudrin, a longtime friend of Mr. Putin's, warned this week of a full-blown economic crisis and called for better relations with Europe and the United States. The price drop, said Edward N. Lutwak, a longtime Pentagon advisor and author of several books on geopolitical and economic strategy, is knocking down America's principal opponents without us even trying. For Iran, which is estimated to be losing $1 billion a month because of the fall, it is as if Congress had passed the much tougher sanctions that the White House lobbied against, he said. But the biggest casualty so far has probably been Russia, where energy revenue accounts for more than half of the government's budget. Mr. Putin built up strong support by seeming to banish the economic turmoil that had afflicted the rule of his predecessor, Boris N. Yeltsin. Yet Russia was back on its heels last week, with the ruble going into such a steep dive that panicked Russians thronged shops to spend what they had. 12.29. Megabanks may steal U.S. taxpayer money to bail themselves out. The sudden dramatic collapse in the price of oil appears to be an act of geopolitical warfare against Russia. The result could be trillions of dollars in oil derivative losses, and the FDIC could be liable, following repeal of key portions of the Dodd-Frank Act last weekend. The preamble to the Dodd-Frank Act claims to protect the American taxpayer by ending bailouts. But it does this through bail-in, authorizing systemically important too-big-to-fail banks to expropriate, steal, the assets of their creditors, including depositors. 2.10. Veterans Today views evidence confirming Putin preparing to release satellite evidence of 9/11. Editor's note: Russian satellite evidence proving the controlled demolition of the World Trade Center using special weapons was reviewed by a VT editor while in Moscow. The article below was forwarded to us for publication in the U.S. and translated from Russian, in Pravda. It is 3 days old, published on February 7, 2015. Moscow, Pravda. American experts believe that despite the fact that relations between the U.S. and Russia reached the worst point since the Cold War, Putin delivered only minor troubles until Obama. Analysts believe that this is the calm before the storm. Putin is going to hit once, but he's going to hit hard. Russia is preparing to release evidence of the involvement of the U.S. government and intelligence services in the September 11 attacks. The list of evidence includes satellite images. This published material can prove the U.S. government was complicit in the 9/11 attacks, and successfully manipulated public opinion. The attack was planned by the U.S. government, but exercised using her proxy, so that an attack on America and the people of the United States looked like an act of aggression of international terrorism. The motive to deceive and murder its own citizens was intended to serve U.S. oil interests and the Middle East state corporations. The evidence will be so convincing that it utterly debunks the official 9/11 cover story supported by the U.S. government. VT editor answers comment with additional info. Bruce Robinson, what, other than the absence of planes used in the destruction, would satellite photos easily portray? That's enough. Editor, Bruce Robinson. We already met with them. They can prove not only nukes but they track them being moved. Jeff met with them when they confirmed Shrimpton's story for us. Or at least part of Shrimpton's story. We had been hearing the same thing. Before we continue, I would like to point out that our own insiders leaked the same data for well over 2 months before this appeared on Veterans Today. The overall gist of what was said here, that Russia is leading an alliance preparing video evidence damning to the cabal, has been discussed on this site for about the last 2-3 years. As we were told, the alliance has meticulously pieced together video surveillance, audio surveillance, satellite photos and other data to make this case, and many others. Super compromising videos of the elite, including satanic rituals, have also been systematically collected and archived to prepare for this event. In fact, we were told that 40% of the U.S. military is working undercover as cyber warriors, gathering and sorting this surveillance data for an eventual disclosure. Detailed evidence has been provided, okay. Take a deep breath. Even without any added text to thread these links into a greater narrative, this can be pretty intense stuff. The idea that a Nazi satanic cabal is using America to attack others, control the financial system and try to kill billions of people is quite unpleasant, to say the least. Even more surprising is the notion that Putin is orchestrating an international alliance to choke off this cabal's financial supply, hack its computers and expose its wrongdoings. Yet, the evidence in favor of this alliance, and the work it is doing to set us free, is overwhelming. It is appearing in major news publications such as the New York Times, as well as top films including Iron Man 3, Captain America, TWS, Oblivion and Edge of Tomorrow. I highly recommend our previous mega article Cosmic Perspective on the Defeat of the Cabal for detailed evidence of movies revealing the alliance and its plans. That article has now accrued over 350,000 unique views, and therefore had a significant impact upon many people who are aware of the truth. The people who attack this data the hardest are usually either paid government trolls or skeptics who decide it feels better to attack the messenger than to face upsetting truths. Now let's talk about Greece. After Pravda's stunning, public admission that Russia is ready to provide proof that the U.S. orchestrated 9/11, things stayed fairly quiet up until Greece began failing. Greece was a major shot across the bow to the entire Western economic system. The headlines told quite a story of potentially imminent chaos, narrowly avoided. At least until this past Friday. In Section 3, we will review images of those headlines and follow the story right up to the present. Even if the Greece problem completely stops, others such as Spain, Portugal, Italy and Ireland will follow. This will inevitably bring down the euro. This is a necessary change. And will be peaceful. Bear in mind that until the old systems actually come to an end, no greater healing of our planet can take place. So even though you may be conditioned to see events like this as bad news, it is precisely the opposite. The stranglehold that has been suffocating the life out of our planet is finally about to be released. The fear porn out there wants you to think we are headed into epic chaos, starvation and pain once this happens, but this seems highly unlikely. I have some degree of survival supplies, but I am not going crazy trying to stock up on water and food. Most likely that is not how this is going to go down. Many steps have been taken to ensure that once the public finally sees the truth, peaceful resolution can quickly occur. They wanted to blow the bridges. Much of this peaceful resistance has involved what we would think of as divine intervention, stopping a wide variety of lethal countermeasures the cabal had built in. As one example, America built explosives into all the key bridges on the Eisenhower interstate system to protect America from a World War II-style land invasion. This system includes all the highways in America that cross long distances and begin with the letter I. In many cases, great pains were taken to steer the highways so that they crossed over the deepest canyons and ravines, forcing bridges to be built. Even now, technicians drill holes and install safety probes in these bridges. These probes do analyze temperature, humidity and stress fractures, but that's not all. They have battery-operated Wi-Fi systems that are set to detonate explosive charges that would tear the bridge down. It appears that the 2007 Minneapolis bridge collapse was a field test of these systems to make sure they worked before the next big crash, and they certainly did. Governors of each state have authorization codes to wirelessly blow the bridges. Were this allowed to happen, it would utterly cripple America. Our food supply requires these land-based distribution channels to be in place for trucks to transport goods as needed. It is only thanks to the patriotic efforts of the Alliance, and to benevolent ETs protecting us, that this hasn't already happened. We discussed this in 2011's Disclosure Imminent? 2 underground bases destroyed. The cabal has been fervently hoping this plan will work. They would have already done by now if they had been able to, but they have been blocked. Why would anyone do this? Why would the powers that were want to bring America to its knees? The simple answer is that these are very, very angry and hateful people. The powers that were are very, very angry and hateful people. So be it. Sociopathy can be deliberately instilled in people. Almost anyone, if abused strongly and consistently enough, can be broken. Most of us can barely imagine what it would be like to grow up in a group that systematically abuses you, in the most horrific ways possible, since before you were even born. It becomes almost impossible for members of these groups to think that anyone could be a genuinely good person. All they have seen, all they have known is deception, lies, evil and savage abuse. In a case like this, your tortured mind then bonds with the group in an attempt to maintain sanity. Imagine a very powerful group with Stockholm Syndrome. This reaction to extreme abuse is a condition known as Stockholm Syndrome, named after abductees fell in love with their kidnappers. At this point, you have bonded with the group. You take the hate they built up into you and project it onto everyone else. Now everyone outside your group becomes an evil, despicable and insidious menace, and they must be wiped out. Killing billions of people on Earth becomes no different than inoculating the chosen against a virus they feel is destroying them. The negative groups are having a temper tantrum. Now let's go back to the idea of the ex-elite wanting to blow all the bridges in America, and reduce us to mass death and starvation. When you tell a child he can't play with his favorite toy, and take it away from him, he may smash it in rage if you turn your back for a split second. Even well-behaved kids can have tantrums. Then, when you have someone with severe emotional pain, they can become capable of doing extreme damage. In a blind rage, they lose their objectivity. They lash out at anyone and everyone who opposes them, even if it is merely a polite disagreement. Thankfully, there are good guys out there that are systematically preventing this group from fulfilling their plans, and this includes the Alliance. The Federal Reserve is just as bankrupt as the euro. After all, it's the same corporation. The Federal Reserve dollar is equally as bankrupt as the euro. That is the elephant in the bedroom that hardly anyone is talking about. This is what needs to be considered as we witness the events now unfolding in the markets. The Federal Reserve's bankruptcy did not happen randomly. It is the result of a decades-long, systematic campaign by the alliance to choke off and defeat the shadow government syndicates. The U.S. debt has been frozen, unreported, for over 150 days. The U.S. national debt has been utterly frozen at $18.1 trillion since March. This has now gone on for over 150 days. Read for yourself. 812. U.S. debt mysteriously frozen at $18.1 trillion for over 150 days. The portion of the federal debt that is subject to a legal limit set by Congress closed Monday, August 10, at $1811297500000, according to the latest daily Treasury statement, which was published at 4 p.m. on Tuesday. That, according to the Treasury's statements, makes 150 straight days the debt subject to the limit has been frozen at $1811297500000. $1811297500000 is about $25 million below the current legal debt limit of $1811300080959.35. On March 13, Treasury Secretary Jacob Lew sent an initial letter to House Speaker John Boehner and other congressional leaders informing them that he was planning to declare a debt issuance suspension period. Beginning on Monday, March 16, the outstanding debt of the United States will be at the statutory limit, Lew said in that letter. In anticipation of reaching the date, Treasury has suspended until further notice the issue of state and local government series securities, which count against the debt limit. On July 29, Lew sent another letter to the leaders of Congress informing them, "I expect to extend the debt issuance suspension period through October 30. Lew explained that he believed the Treasury would be able to continue using extraordinary measures to keep the debt from exceeding the limit through at least the end of October. The effective duration of the extraordinary measures is subject to considerable uncertainty due to a variety of factors, including the unpredictability of September tax receipts and the normal challenges of forecasting the payments and receipts of the U.S. government months into the future," Lew told the congressional leaders. Given this unavoidable uncertainty, Treasury is not able to provide a specific estimate of how long the extraordinary measures will last, Lew said. Nonetheless, we believe that the measures will not be exhausted before late October, and it is likely that they will last for at least a brief additional period of time. The next day, July 30, Lew did in fact send a notice to the congressional leaders saying, "I have determined that a debt issuance suspension, previously determined to last until July 30, 2015, will continue through October 30, 2015. Oh, it's so boring. The wording is so technical and boring. Blah. Who wants to read this stuff? Bear in mind that what you just saw is a tacit admission that there is no money left in the U.S. government. They are bankrupt, and have given themselves until October 30 to stay that way." What exactly were they cooking up as a big fundraiser that they felt would be completed by November 1? Since the cabal is a group of death merchants, and profit the most by creating war, think about it. They may very well have been planning events causing massive loss of life. This is how you start to think once you are exposed to the way these people work. What does this mean? Everyone we know who is an insider working for the alliance is dazzled that the Western world has not yet realized the United States Federal Reserve is bankrupt. They are obviously continuing to print money out of thin air. The situation has accelerated to the point where they are no longer even telling us the numbers. They have had the magic money printing press since World War II. All trade had to be conducted in dollars, and tariffs paid accordingly. The Alliance Bank was launched at the end of June. The insider rumors we leaked here for many years became a reality when the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, or AIIB, was announced as an alternative to the Fed's dominance on June 29, 2015. Remember that date. You will see why it is important in Section 3 of this report. Surprisingly, over 50 different countries joined this alliance-led effort to reform our financial system on the day it was announced, 6/29, 50 countries sign up for China-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, Shanghai. Representatives from 57 countries have attended a signing ceremony in Beijing for the founding of the new Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. The institution, designed to promote regional development, has been seen as a significant foreign policy success for China, which proposed the idea. It has also become something of an embarrassment for the U.S., which announced early on that it would not be joining, only to discover that many of its allies had no such qualms. Australia was the first country to sign the agreement at a ceremony in Beijing's Great Hall of the People. The other 49 countries that signed up, 7 others are still waiting for approval from their domestic legislatures, included Germany, the UK and South Korea. China has said the bank, which will be based in Beijing and is expected to start work by the end of this year, will play a major role in speeding up development in a region where some $8 trillion in investment is expected to be required in the next 5 years alone. It is seen as providing an alternative to U.S.-dominated institutions such as the World Bank and Asian Development Bank, which some in Asia consider slow to respond to the needs of the region, and as imposing too many conditions on development. China's voting share in the bank's decision-making process will be just over 26%, more than the quarter of votes needed to veto projects, followed by India and Russia, with 7.5% and just under 6% respectively. Reuters said Germany would be the 4th biggest shareholder, with a 4% stake. How do you tell people you are being screwed when your adversary controls the media? China has been hit very hard ever since this bank was announced, as we will discuss. The crash we are now seeing is only one aspect of this insider war. The alliance has deliberately accelerated the euro crisis to a breaking point to help speed up the healing process for our planet. The Greece default and resulting economic events are a key part of the alliance's plan to defeat the cabal. The Greece default was a key part of this plan in action, and now we are seeing the further stages of it playing themselves out. The cabal has controlled the media so effectively that it becomes very difficult to tell people the truth about what is going on. The story behind the headlines. Brazil, Russia, India and China are now the top economic powers generating real goods, not magic paper money. For years they have pushed for greater equality and voting rights within the IMF, International Monetary Fund. Brooks has been lied to repeatedly. Every attempt the Brooks Alliance has made to gain their fair share of the global financial system has been thwarted. Every promise has been a lie. That story will be the bulk of what we discuss in Section 3. The cabal's media-indoctrinated facade of invulnerability and unquestioned goodness has to drop. It will take large, visible events to awaken the people from slumber. According to insiders, the cabal was forced to use up the last of its money in bailing out Greece, just to try to keep the game going a little bit longer. Now that they are truly out of options, they have become a wounded lion, striking out at China, as we will see in later sections. The cabal has done an excellent job of clouding the alternative truth-seeking media with information saturation, thus distracting everyone from the real issues. Coming up next, the cabal's favorite weapon to create wars without anybody noticing. In the next section we will discuss weather warfare, the cabal's weapon of choice to fight wars and punish their enemies without anyone in the world noticing. So-called natural disasters may in fact be weaponized attacks. In this section we explore the hard science that lines up with insider testimony about this ongoing menace. Let's talk about weather warfare for a second. Former Secretary of Defense William Cohen admitted in a 1997 press conference that weather warfare technology exists. Any and all attempts to debunk this statement cannot change the basic fact that the words did come out of his mouth, and are still available on a U.S. government site. Former Secretary of Defense William Cohen, it is very commonly known amongst insiders that this technology does exist, and is extremely effective. Multiple factions use it against each other. The California drought is the worst in over 1,200 years. This is an effort by the psychopathic cabal to destroy America's food supply on the way out. I live in Los Angeles and can honestly say this year has been so much hotter than any other, It is both infuriating and mind-boggling to experience. Even now we are about to surf into yet another nearly intolerable shift of 100-degree days. I have never seen anything like this here before. April 28, 1997, Secretary of Defense William Cohen acknowledges weather warfare technology. Others are engaging even in an eco-type of terrorism whereby they can alter the climate, set off earthquakes, volcanoes remotely through the use of electromagnetic waves. So there are plenty of ingenious minds out there that are at work finding ways in which they can wreak terror upon other nations. It's real, and that's the reason why we have to intensify our efforts. That's why this is so important. Wait a minute, where is the proof? We are so glad you asked. First of all, as an overarching principle, the HAARP, High Altitude Auroral Research Project, microwave technology should be easy to understand. You start by creating very high-intensity microwave beams with antenna-mounted emitters. You can point the emitters anywhere you want. Bounce the microwaves off of the Earth's charged particle layer, known as the ionosphere, and you can direct a focused beam anywhere in the world. This same principle lets you take a glass lens and concentrate the light of the sun into a tiny point, allowing you to start a fire. Now let's think about a microwave oven you probably have at home. If you put water inside the microwave and run it, the water will turn to steam. If you then put the water inside a sealed container, the steam will cause pressure, and the container will eventually explode. Expand on the idea of microwaves and think about the weather. Now think about how this could apply to the weather. Weather cycles are simply the result of high-pressure zones flowing into low-pressure zones. Heat up an area with microwaves and you get higher pressure. Then, by varying where you direct the beam, you can steer the high-pressure zone wherever you want it to go. Earthquakes and volcanoes, similarly, imagine microwaving the slippery rock goo that the continents are floating on, known as the mantle. If you get this rock hot enough, it will slip and slide much more easily. Do this at any boundary between two plates and it's like squirting oil in a rusty old hinge. The plates slide, and boom. You get an earthquake. These catastrophes are still listed in legal contracts as acts of God. That must make the cabal feel very proud of themselves. In the case of a volcano, you have molten under high pressure, pushing against a cooler, rocky plug at the base of the cone. If you heat up that rocky plug enough that it starts to melt and crack apart, the pressurized lava can blast through it. Boom. You've got a volcanic eruption. If this is how it works, then where is the tangible evidence? Again, we are so glad you asked. Let's first look at the Fukushima earthquake and mega tsunami. Isn't it interesting that in the days leading up to the big quake on March 11th, there were unusual spikes of heat in the atmosphere over Japan? Coincidence? Not. Notice how the heat spikes appear right over the fault lines, almost as if it were massaging them into slipping. May 23, 2011, Discover, atmospheric temp spiked before Japan quake. The team's analysis, which has not yet been published in a journal yet, only in the non-peer-reviewed arXiv, finds that before the earthquake, the number of electrons in the ionosphere above the epicenter increased dramatically, peaking 3 days before. The infrared radiation, that is, the heat, grew as well, peaking just hours before. So far, the connection doesn't seem like an easily dismissible coincidence. After analyzing more than 100 other earthquakes, the researchers have found that large, greater than 5.5 magnitude, shallow, 31 miles below the surface, quakes had similar correlations with atmospheric ionization and heat. Here is another example. In case some mega-skeptics try to dismiss Discover as not quite scientific enough, here is another example from the prestigious MIT Technology Review, May 18, 2011. MIT, atmosphere above Japan heated rapidly before M9 quake. Today, Dmitry Uzanov at the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland and a few buddies present the data from the Great Tohoku earthquake which devastated Japan on 11 March. Their results, although preliminary, are eye-opening. They say that before the M9 earthquake, the total electron content of the ionosphere increased dramatically over the epicenter, reaching a maximum 3 days before the quake struck. At the same time, satellite observations showed a big increase in infrared emissions from above the epicenter, which peaked in the hours before the quake. In other words, the atmosphere was heating up. MIT also covered the same phenomenon for the Haiti quake. The devastating Haiti quake of January 12, 2010 killed over 230,000 people. Notice how the epicenter was conveniently right near the presidential palace and the UN headquarters. January 13, 2010, Haiti devastated by quake. A massive 7.0 magnitude earthquake has struck the Caribbean nation of Haiti. Haiti's worst quake in 2 centuries hit south of the capital Port-au-Prince on Tuesday, wrecking the presidential palace, UNHQ and other buildings. A large number of UN personnel were reported missing by the organization. Many people have spent the night outside amid fears of more aftershocks. The Red Cross says up to 3 million people have been affected. Describing the earthquake as a catastrophe, Haiti's envoy to the U.S. said the cost of the damage could run into billions. January 6, 2015, CNN on Haiti earthquake facts, the toll, 230,000 to 316,000, estimates of the death toll vary. 300,000, number of injured, 1.5 million, people initially displaced, 85,432. Displaced people remain in 123 sites as of September 2014. Let's hear what MIT said about the Haiti quake. MIT revealed that there were strange anomalies in the atmosphere over Haiti for an entire month prior to the quake. December 9, 2010, MIT, major spike in ULF radio emissions over Haiti for an entire month before quake. Now Michael Athanasiou at the Technical University of Saras in Greece and a few buddies say that the Demeter satellite spotted good of evidence of a change in ultra-low-frequency radio waves in the ionosphere above Haiti in the run-up to the quake. The results reveal a significant increase of the energy of ULF waves, up to 360%, for a period of 1 month before the main earthquake compared with the energy of the background, they say. That's a dramatic increase. These emissions dropped gradually in the month after the quake. The implications are interesting. Athanasiou and CO say, the results of this paper clearly indicate that ULF electromagnetic waves can be very useful in revealing possible precursor seismic phenomena. Fulford's insiders confirmed Haiti was in attack. In a spirited post at the dawn of his paid blog, Benjamin Fulford revealed insider testimony that the Haiti attack was a tipping point for the alliance. Many countries finally realized that earthquakes, volcanoes, typhoons and hurricanes could be deliberately created, and they were not happy about it. January 16, 2010, Fulford, Haiti quake was a weaponized attack. The members of the Bush-Clinton Nazi crime family made a fatal error when they decided to attack Haiti with an earthquake weapon. This Nazi cabal sent a CIA agent to the Black Dragon Society to give forewarning of the attack. The agent talked about the tsunami unleashed against Indonesia and said the oil companies won a war and nobody knew about it. Well, now everybody knows about it. The Japanese Yakuza now know the Kobe earthquake of 1995 was the result of a deliberate attack and they are eager for revenge. The people of Indonesia now know the tsunami was a deliberate attack and they know who ordered it. They are also eager for revenge. The Chinese now know the 1976 earthquake that killed 655,000 people was a deliberate attack and are eager for justice. History.com lists this as the worst earthquake in modern times. The people of Haiti also know who attacked them and will also seek revenge. Etc. etc. There is now nowhere on earth for these criminals to hide. It was not lost on the Black Dragon Society that the attack on Haiti came on the anniversary of the Kobe earthquake, but the society has a policy of not responding to threats. If they think they are going to unleash a tsunami against Tokyo and get away with it, they are truly insane. The criminal cabal is also wrong in their belief that they will be able to grab more plunder in the form of aid for Haiti. This is not going to happen. January 25, 2010, Fulford, Haiti earthquake being discussed as an attack. The Venezuelan government, Iranian government TV, Fox News and many other outlets mentioned the possibility that Haiti was attacked with an earthquake weapon. This sort of open accusation was unthinkable, for example, when Indonesia was attacked with the earthquake weapon that caused its tsunami there. In both cases U.S. forces were pre-positioned with aid before the earthquake struck. The names of the people who ordered the attack have been made public and there will be consequences. The days of mass murder with impunity are coming to an end. The Chile earthquake. Shortly after the Haiti quake, there was a major meeting of the alliance, unifying the South American countries against the cabal for the very first time. Chile was declared to be the head of the South American alliance. Their term would begin on March 1, just 3 days after they made the announcement. The very next day after the announcement, Chile got hit with a massive quake. Coincidence? Here is the article where the alliance partnership was announced on February 26, 2010, February 26, 2010, South America to create new EU-type alliance to defy U.S. The 24-strong bloc of Latin American states known as the Rio Group is to join the Caribbean community to form a new trade body intended to present opposition to U.S. dominance. What can it really hope to achieve? The Rio Group assertively announced the birth of its successor earlier this week, at a summit in a resort town on Mexico's Caribbean coast. Mexican President Felipe Calderón declared that a new body had been formed that would represent both the Group of Rio and the 15-member Caribbean Community, CARICOM. Going under the provisional name the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States, CELC. The newly announced body specifically excluded the United States and Canada from membership, and intends to consolidate the sometimes tenuous solidarity among the Central and South American states. Almost every Latin American country was represented at the annual summit in Mexico, and together they succeeded in formulating some of the values of the subcontinent. Calderón declared, "We have decided to base an organization on shared values including sovereignty and the non-use of force, including threats of force, international cooperation, ever closer integration of Latin America and the Caribbean and permanent political dialogue." Historical rhetoric. There was no shortage of high-flown and defiant rhetoric at the meeting, led predictably by Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez, who spoke of finally throwing off the U.S. yoke. There was a strong sense that the region's most left-wing, anti-American governments had pioneered the creation of the new organization, which is set to convene for the first time on July 5, 2011, in Caracas, Venezuela. In an interview with South American broadcaster Telesur, Bolivian President Evo Morales lent his own weight to the vision of a South American brotherhood united against the U.S. Morales was among many who recently voiced concern about the huge U.S. military presence now stationed on Haiti, and the summit pledged to send a further $25 million. 18.5 million euros, to the earthquake-hit country. A union of Latin American countries is the weapon against imperialism. It is necessary to create a regional body that excludes the United States and Canada, Morales said. Where there are U.S. military bases that do not respect democracy, where there is political empire with its blackmailers, with its constraints, there is no development for that country, and especially there is no social peace. On top of this, the 6 nations that have been chosen to draw up the new body's mission statement, Mexico, Brazil, Chile, Jamaica, the Dominican Republic and Venezuela, are mainly countries with no interest in antagonizing the U.S. The fact that U.S.-friendly Chile takes over the 2-year presidency of the Group of Rio in March is unlikely to sharpen tensions within the Americas either. February 27, 2010, massive Chile earthquake. The South American alliance was announced on February 26, 2010, as we just saw. Chile was the head of the presidency for this alliance, it was announced. The very next day, Chile got hit with a massive earthquake, affecting over 2 million people. If the cabal had more time to plan this, it undoubtedly would have been far more deadly. February 27, 2010, Chile earthquake affects 2 million people. As the sun set in Chile on Saturday, a picture of the immense structural damage wrought by an early morning earthquake had come clearly into focus, with the nation's president estimating that 2 million people had been affected in some way. More than 300 people were killed, according to Chile's Office of Emergency Management, and 15 are missing. The carnage from the 8.8 magnitude quake didn't begin to approach that unleashed by January's earthquake in Haiti, which left 212,000 people dead and more than 1 million homeless, even though it was considerably less forceful, with a 7.0 magnitude. Saturday's quake was 700 to 800 times stronger, but at a greater depth, 21.7 miles, compared to the shallow 8.1 mile depth of the Haiti quake, which contributed to much of the damage there. Now let's consider the ridiculously resilient ridge blocking rain from California. With all of this in mind, let's turn our attention to the California drought, which is now openly seen as the worst in 1,200 years, if not longer. As a resident of Los Angeles, I have been viscerally aware of this battle. The temperatures in California are vastly higher than usual this year. It started all the way back in February, where we had high 80 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures. It was bad enough to cause people to run their AC. In February, I was almost one of them. Typically the weather ebbs and flows when you watch the 5-day and 10-day forecast. You have predicted highs and they don't happen, or vice versa. All year now, I have watched almost every single forecasted temperature get jacked up as the dates get closer. The pessimistic view is almost always correct. This is another attack against America. Once you understand that this cabal realizes they are being defeated, and are very bitter and angry people, it becomes possible to grasp why this is happening. California produces a majority of the food for America. If the cabal can destroy those crops completely, it could trigger mass starvation and social upheaval. This in turn would require a declaration of martial law. Under those circumstances they could declare a state of emergency and regain the power they are losing. Then, if they could create other acts of destruction at the same time, they could further amplify the chaos. Weathermen are baffled by the ridiculously resilient ridge. In these next excerpts, we see how meteorologists are baffled by this weather formation, which is utterly and completely abnormal, not a function of nature. January 13, 2014, ridiculously resilient ridge cause of California dry spell. As California struggles through a run of historically dry weather, most residents are looking at falling reservoir levels, dusty air and thirsty lawns. But meteorologists have fixed their attention on the scientific phenomenon they say is to blame for the emerging drought. It is a vast zone of high pressure in the atmosphere off the west coast, nearly 4 miles high and 2,000 miles long, so stubborn that one researcher has dubbed it the ridiculously resilient ridge. Like a brick wall, the mass of high-pressure air has been blocking Pacific winter storms from coming ashore in California, deflecting them up into Alaska and British Columbia, even delivering rain and cold weather to the East Coast. Similar high-pressure zones pop up all the time during most winters, but they usually break down, allowing rain to get through to California. This one, ominously, has anchored itself for 13 months, since December 2012, making it unprecedented in modern weather records and leaving researchers scratching their heads. It's like the Sierra, a mountain range just sitting off the west coast, only bigger, said Bob Benjamin, a forecaster at the National Weather Service in Monterey. This ridge is sort of a mountain in the atmosphere. In most years, it comes and goes. This year it came and didn't go. September 29, 2014, ridiculously resilient ridge still going. The western ridge is forcing Pacific storm systems to make a sharp poleward turn 1,000 to 2,000 miles west of California, advecting copious warm, moist subtropical air toward much higher latitudes in Alaska and British Columbia. Rents.com publishes photographic evidence of manipulation. The article How the Pacific Storms of 2013 to 2014 Were Trashed on Rents.com gives photographic evidence of how this is being done. Clear, undeniable straight-line formations are shown, revealing how this weather system is being kept so stubbornly in place. February 18, 2014, How the Pacific Storms of 2013 to 2014 Were Trashed. Thanks to satellite weather photos, we've been able to observe a persistent, virtually permanent, huge, blocking high-pressure system off the west coast for the last 2 months. Most of November, December and into January. We have watched the satellite photos reveal how storm after storm formed up, as usual, In the Kamchatka, Korea and northern Japan, Fukushima, areas of the Northwest Pacific. We've watched them move from west to east, like they have always done, to deliver their life-giving rain and snow to keep the U.S. green and verdant. These storm systems, wave after wave, fill our lakes and rivers with water, rain on our vast agricultural lands and cover the Sierras, Cascades and Rockies with snow. However, for some strange reason, not one of them has made it through the immense high-pressure blockade sitting off the west coast this winter. Why? These often robust rain systems run into the high-pressure brick wall and are broken down into pieces with much of their water content draining back into the Pacific. Here we are 2 days later and you can see the high pressure is back off California, stronger than ever. Could benevolent extraterrestrials do anything to help us? The idea that some people still do not believe in ETs visiting Earth, in light of all the evidence, is truly mind-boggling. This shows how effective the cabal's media indoctrination and mass brainwashing has been. Thankfully, this is finally changing. Too many insiders have come forward. Too much evidence has been presented. The Internet has decentralized the control of information, and with it has come a veritable plethora of disclosure. The mainstream media now has to play catch-up or risk becoming completely irrelevant. MSM, Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell reveals ETs preventing nuclear war. The mainstream media erupted just over a week ago with sensational news. This was just one of many signs of an ongoing disclosure process in action. Apollo astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who walked directly on the moon's surface, has now revealed that benevolent ETs are protecting us from nuclear war. Dr. Mitchell bases this on the testimony of multiple insiders he has had direct contact with. NASA astronaut Dr. Edgar Mitchell, if these ETs are protecting us from nuclear war, it is reasonable to assume they would help us out in cases of severe weather warfare as well. They do appear to have a prime directive that does not allow them to stop every atrocity, but they also will not allow the planet itself to be destroyed. Spin doctors attempt to take down an American hero. In the articles that revealed the nuclear prevention plan, British spin minister Nick Pope was used to attempt to discredit one of America's greatest heroes. Bear in mind that the tests of intelligence, bravery and physical stamina required to become a NASA astronaut were among the most demanding on Earth. Who will you decide to trust? It's up to you. That's what's cool about disclosure. So far, you get to decide when you are ready to accept the truth. Let's read excerpts from the disclosure articles. This was a major event, in case you haven't seen it, so it is worth reviewing for context of our discussion. Though there was widespread coverage, we will focus here on 3 top British papers: The Mirror, The Daily Mail and The Telegraph. 8/11, Edgar Mitchell, peace-loving ETs helped save America from nuclear war. The sixth man to walk on the surface of the moon has made the astonishing claim that aliens came to Earth to stop a nuclear war between America and Russia. Edgar Mitchell, a veteran of the Apollo 14 mission in 1971, told Mirror Online that top-ranking military sources spotted UFOs during weapons tests. The astronaut has been outspoken about his belief in aliens ever since he landed on the surface of the moon, becoming one of the most prominent figures in the worldwide UFO community. He told us military insiders have seen strange crafts flying over missile bases in the famous White Sands facility, where the world's first ever nuclear bomb was detonated in 1945. Mitchell grew up in New Mexico near both the bomb testing zone and Roswell, where believers think one of the world's most famous UFO encounters took place. "You don't know the area like I do," he said in an interview with Mirror Online. White Sands was a testing ground for atomic weapons, and that's what the extraterrestrials were interested in. They wanted to know about our military capabilities. My own experience talking to people has made it clear the ETs had been attempting to keep us from going to war and help create peace on Earth. Mitchell also suggested he had heard similar stories from people who manned missile bases during the most tense parts of the 20th century. "I have spoken to many Air Force officers who worked at these silos during the Cold War," he continued. "They told me UFOs were frequently seen overhead and often disabled their missiles. Other officers from bases on the Pacific coast told me their test missiles were frequently shot down by alien spacecraft. There was a lot of activity in those days. We asked Nick Pope, a former Ministry of Defense UFO researcher, whether he believed Mitchell's claims. Edgar Mitchell is an honorable and truthful man, who I've had the privilege of meeting, he said. But so far as I'm aware, most of his information on this issue comes not from things he's experienced himself, but from things he's been told by others. Clearly, because of who he is, he's had access to government, military and intelligence community personnel at the highest level, but because, quite understandably, he won't name his sources, we can't be certain these people were being straight with him, or indeed that they were privy to any classified information about UFOs. 812. Edgar Mitchell claims ET saved America from nuclear war. Aliens came to Earth to stop a nuclear war between America and Russia, according to the bizarre claim of a former astronaut. Dr. Mitchell says stories from people who manned missile bases during the 20th century back up his claims. Other officers from bases on the Pacific coast told me their test missiles were frequently shot down by alien spacecraft, he said. He previously said supposedly real-life ETs were similar to the traditional image of a small frame, large eyes and head. He claimed our technology is not nearly as sophisticated as theirs, and had they been hostile, he warned we would be been gone by now. Nick Pope, a former Ministry of Defense UFO researcher, told DailyMail.com that Dr. Mitchell's comments are all based on second-hand reports. Even where Mitchell's sources are genuine, how do we know they have access to classified information about UFOs? Asks Pope. UFO believers say it's no coincidence that aliens showed up very shortly after we developed atomic weapons and rocket technology, as this is when they were alerted to the threat we pose to the wider cosmos. Dr. Mitchell, who has a Bachelor of Science degree in Aeronautical Engineering and a Doctor of Science degree in Aeronautics and Astronautics, also says the Roswell cover-up was real. This is really starting to open up, he told a radio show several years ago. I think we're headed for real disclosure, and some serious organizations are moving in that direction. Officials from NASA were quick to play the comments down. In a statement at the time, a spokesman said, NASA does not track UFOs. NASA is not involved in any sort of cover-up about alien life on this planet or anywhere in the universe. Dr. Mitchell is a great American, but we do not share his opinions on this issue. 813. Retired astronaut says peace-loving ETs stopped nuclear war, giant spheres coming into our solar system. Kent Steadman, 1942–2008, extensively documented the arrival of huge, planet-sized spheres into our solar system in the late 1990s and early 2000s. This was done on his website, cyberspaceorbit.com. It was hard to read and often technical, but month after month, year after year the spheres appeared. I did not cover this story back in those days, but I was following it every week. I was astonished at how many of these spheres came and went, without a word from NASA or the government. The photographs and animated GIFs were right there for anyone bothering to look, but hardly anyone was. A major event involving two spheres on June 2, 1998. One dramatic example occurred when two spheres flew into the Sun on June 2, 1998. They apparently portaled out and caused a coronal mass ejection, CME, at the same time. Even if these were just comets, in the conventional model, comets are not supposed to cause the Sun to do this, so it must be a coincidence. In case the above animated GIF freezes up, here is another, slower, 12-frame animated image of it happening. Then, just a week later, these LASCO images showed a planet-sized object moving past the Sun, from right to left, at high speed. Oh. Right. Not a comet this time. It must be Mars. Or Mercury. Come on guys, think of something. Two of these images were taken on June 9, 1998, then another on the 10th and another on the 11th. The lines you see off to the sides are caused by these spheres overloading the light sensors on the satellite. They are not wings, as some theorized. Comets are not supposed to create CMEs. For years, NASA ignored multiple images of these planet-sized spheres on their own satellites. Kent Steadman tracked the story diligently. There are not enough planets in our inner solar system to even begin to account for the number of sphere sightings Steadman documented. In the case where these two alleged comets caused a tsunami, NASA simply dismissed it as likely unrelated. I literally laughed out loud when I read this. June 4, 1998. SOHO sees two comets plunge into Sun. In a rare celestial spectacle, two comets have been observed plunging into the Sun's atmosphere in close succession, on June 1 and 2. This unusual event on Earth's own star was followed on June 2 by a likely unrelated but also dramatic ejection of solar gas and magnetic fields on the southwest, or lower right, limb of the Sunday. The observations of the comets and the large erupting prominence were made by the LOSCO coronagraph on the SAS Solar and Heliospheric Observatory, SOHO, spacecraft. Science instruments on SOHO have discovered more than 50 comets, including many so-called sun grazers, but none in such close succession. We covered some of this data in Secret Space Program Revealed, from June 14, 2015. The amount of data far exceeds our available time for analysis. Please bear in mind that there are many dozens of different photographic examples of this, with write-ups, on Steadman's site. I am supposed to be working on my next book right now. I simply do not have the time to do a detailed write-up of all of these different sightings of gigantic spheres. So, before you knock this and say there is no evidence, bear in mind that there are many dozens of compelling photographic pieces of evidence available. There is no question that gigantic spheres were flying around our sun in the late 1990s, and NASA was covering it up. The real question is not whether this happened. It did. The real question is who are they and where did they come from? Mysterious giant spheres entering our solar system, beginning in 1980s. Back in 2009, insider Pete Peterson told me a Neptune-sized sphere came into our solar system in the 1980s. At first they thought it was a new planet, until it very clearly began staring itself and making course corrections. This caused great concern in the Reagan White House. No. We are not going to do a circling around Uranus joke here. It came in, circled Pluto, then Neptune, then Uranus and started heading for Saturn. At this point it was contacted by a classified spacefaring craft. This was Area 51 type stuff we're not supposed to have. The sphere was asked to leave, and it did so, peacefully. 3 other high-ranking insiders I have direct contact with confirmed this event did take place. Hundreds more spheres arrived in the late 1990s. Then, according to space program insider Corey Good, hundreds more of these spheres came into our solar system in the late 1990s and early 2000s. The pictures I just showed you are only a few of the many, many examples you can find for yourself by going through Steadman's archives. These spheres either portaled in and out through the sun, as we saw above, or they came in through the outside, through the Oort cloud. The Cabal people got very excited. At the time, the Cabal people were very excited about this, believing it was the return of their extraterrestrial Sumerian gods, but nothing happened. The spheres did not respond to any hailing signals. They just drifted around and minded their own business. This remained a huge mystery, pun intended. However, secrecy is the rule. NASA wasn't about to tell the public what they were seeing on SOHO. If you went and looked, you could see it for yourself. The truth was hiding out in the open. That's how the Cabal loves to do it. We didn't lie to you. You just never bothered to look. 100 massive spheres come in, starting in 2012, then in 2012, insiders were shocked to see over 100 gigantic new spheres come in. They were massive, either the size of Neptune or Jupiter. And this time they were cloaked. Over 100 supermassive spheres the size of Neptune and Jupiter entered our solar system in 2012. Before long, the insiders found out what was going on. 5 different types of beings were inside these spheres, and they were working to defeat the Cabal. They contacted a division of the secret space program known as Solar Warden and gave them the tools they needed to ensure victory. The Solar Warden faction has been able to use this donated technology to prevent the cabal from creating many different epic disasters ever since. December 5, 2014, cabal allegedly fires on giant sphere. On December 2014, 3 separate insiders revealed that the cabal opened fire on one of these spheres with a massive weapon. The sphere was parked near our moon, but further back, causing it to be about a fifth the apparent diameter of the moon from our perspective. The sphere was cloaked, but once this red beam hit it, the sphere lit up like a Christmas tree. The International Space Station was right there, in camera range, to capture the light show. Had there been a huge explosion, the cabal would have done something to debunk the whole thing. That's what they were hoping for. Ringside seats. The cabal did not get what they expected. 12:5, strange red sphere appears over Earth near ISS. UFO enthusiasts poring over International Space Station footage seemingly have found a massive red sphere shooting a laser beam. The video footage was captured on December 5. As one blog notes, it is not clear whether the object, man-made or extraterrestrial, shoots the beam towards an object in space or Earth. The footage was captured at around 9:20 a.m. UK time, as seen below. One user speculated on YouTube that it was a ground-based laser satellite shot. The truth of the matter is that, pardon me for mimicking the verbal pauses of how many people speak these days when they are about to say something heavy. It's good to lighten things up a bit here. Goods insiders, along with others I was in contact with, revealed that the cabal fired on this sphere with a very powerful weapon based in Pine Gap, Australia. The sphere reversed the beam back onto the base and destroyed it. Many top cabal people, including multiple high-level people from Canada, were lost in the resulting explosion. This type of defensive move is completely consistent with the philosophy that is expressed in the Law of One series, which we have covered here for many years. The beings piloting the spheres do appear to be the same beings responsible for writing the Law of One, and helping us out in other direct ways. This has been one of the greatest and most unexpected surprises in this entire journey for me. This was a game changer. After this massive attack was repelled, a series of dramatic steps were taken by the beings in the spheres to protect our planet from harm. This included creating an unprecedented outer barrier around the solar system itself, and enforcing a no-fly zone around the Earth. The Solar Warden faction was given the go-ahead to shoot down any individual or group trying to enter or exit the Earth, keeping us strictly protected. The spheres blast strange beams of light into the Earth. Less than a month later, the spheres blasted strange beams of light into the Earth on January 3, 2015. No one on the inside knew what was being done, or why. The beams did not seem to target any obvious locations. It was a mystery. Corey Good discussed this and other events in recent episodes of our show Cosmic Disclosure. We will probably go into this in our radio show, which is about to start in the next 90 minutes. I just checked the clock. 5:55. Pillars of Light on January 3, 2015. This event created a much bigger disruption within the insider world than it did within the UFO community. Certain sites did cover it briefly. Unfortunately, most purportedly channeled information is contaminated by the conscious mind and the imagination. However, in this case a woman named Alexandra apparently got accurate data that confirmed what others had visibly seen around the world. Fishermen in Alaska, for example, witnessed a massive, mile-wide pillar of purplish light beaming down into the ocean near their boats. The cabal went through great lengths to scrub any actual photos of this event off of the internet, even through deleting images off of people's smartphones. Alexandra may have seen some of these images before they were scrubbed, or had friends who witnessed it, but this is what she had to say. 16. Pillars of light seen in skies on January 3, 2015. Something huge just happened to our planet on Friday. It began with a cryptic text message received from a friend of mine, which then led to a phone call with James G. This was followed by several incoming phone calls and emails that all led to confirming what I saw Friday around 11:15 a.m. PST, probably 11:11. This is big, folks, and I want everyone to understand the magnitude of what is going down right now. I saw many massive pillars of light descending onto planet Earth at this time, Friday morning. As they landed, a big thump was felt etherically. I heard it was guardians, ancient light beings who had arrived and caused a bursting of light from Mother Earth's crystal core, looking a bit like cogs of light pressing outwards. The impact of their arrival was the catalyst for this explosion of light from within. I then asked about funding for major projects. Was it true that this was coming shortly? I was told yes. When I asked if the rumors of the dark interfering as before had any accuracy, I was told they had no means to do so anymore. I was shown that the presence of these guardians would nullify the technological abilities of the dark's efforts. I kept hearing game over and a reminder of God's decree, which is enough is enough. One video of this event may have survived. This next video, posted January 29, 2015, may possibly be one of the surviving sightings of these beams coming in, similar to a 2009 beam of light sighting into Kukulkan Pyramid. On July 24, 2009, a tourist from El Salvador photographed a most remarkable pillar of light, seemingly beaming directly into the top of the Kukulkan Pyramid. He did not see it with the naked eye in this case, but it was visible on the camera when he brought it back to the bus. This caused him great surprise. Skeptics have tried to write this off as an image artifact caused by the flash of lightning behind it. However, this does not answer several key questions. Why does the beam go directly into the top of the pyramid, not off to the left where the bolt of lightning is? Why is there no sign at all of the beam below where it strikes the top of the pyramid? If it were a camera glitch, it should continue down further. Why does the beam have such a remarkable gradient of brightness changes, even well above where the lightning beam is visible? Are these beams responsible for healing the Earth from the California HAARP attack? On August 13, the headlines stunned us with remarkable relief. Finally, a massive El Niño is heating up the crust under the oceans off the coast of California. This is warming up the surface of the ocean dramatically, and should lead to a massive inundation of rainfall this winter. Thank God. Or thank someone. Incredibly, the MSM still encourages us to fear, fear, fear. This is such good news that it borders on divine intervention. That may be exactly what we are seeing. It is possible that the beams coming from the spheres are heating up the interior of the Earth. This may involve a technology the Cabal is unable to thwart with their own HAARP gadgetry, causing the effect. I could hardly believe my eyes when the articles on this all focused on the negative, like mudslides and flooding. Oh no. We get it. Look. Guys. Listen. We get it. The mainstream media's attempt to turn a huge rain blessing for California into more fear porn is pathetic. Lots of water will create lots of problems. Some people will have property damage. A few may even die from it. But for God's sake, if we're going to get 2 years worth of rainfall this winter, that is a good thing. Take this drought and shove it. 813, Godzilla of El Niño may be coming to Southern California. After the summer 1997 El Niño muscled up, the following winter gave Southern California double its annual rainfall and dumped double the snowpack in the Sierra Nevada, an essential source of precipitation for the state's water supply, Patzert said. A strong El Niño can shift a subtropical jet stream that normally pours rain over the jungles of southern Mexico and Central America toward California and the southern United States. The effects of this muscular El Niño, nicknamed Bruce Lee by one blogger for the National Weather Service, are already being felt worldwide. While a strong El Niño can bring heavy winter rains to California and the southern United States, it can also bring dry weather elsewhere in the world. In California, officials have cautioned the public against imagining that El Niño will suddenly end the state's chronic water challenges. In fact, it would take an astonishing 2.5 to 3 times the average annual precipitation to make up for the rain and snow lost in the central Sierra Mountain Range over the last 4 years of drought, said Kevin Werner, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's expert on climate in the western United States. That amount far exceeds what happened in 1983, the wettest year on record for that region, when the area got 1.9 times the average annual precipitation, Werner said. A single El Niño year is very unlikely to erase 4 years of drought, Werner said. The drought is not ending anytime soon, Halpert added. California has been dry for much of the last 15 years. Even if California gets a wet winter this year, it could be followed by another severe multi-year drought. Wait a minute, let's look at this. How the hell do you take the best news we have ever had since this whole thing started and turn it into more fear porn? Honestly. Okay. So in 1983, that El Niño event dumped almost 2 times more water on California than it usually would get. And this event is supposed to be just as big, if not bigger. 813, Godzilla of El Niño rains coming to Southern California. Federal meteorologists say the current El Niño is already the second strongest on record for this time of year and could be one of the most potent weather changers of the past 65 years. The National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration recorded unusual warmth in the Pacific Ocean in the last 3 months. El Niño is a heating of the equatorial Pacific that changes weather worldwide, mostly affecting the United States in winter. This definitely has the potential of being the Godzilla El Niño, Bill Patzert, a climatologist with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, told the Los Angeles Times. Everything now is going to the right way for El Niño. If this lives up to its potential, this thing can bring a lot of floods, mudslides and mayhem. NOAA's Mark Halpert said Thursday the current El Niño likely will rival past super El Niños in 1997 to 1998, 1982 to 1983 and 1972 to 73. 813, current El Niño could be historically strong, just back off. 2 times more water is a very good thing. We may need 2.5 times or 3 times more to finish the job. True. But hell yeah, we'll take 2 years worth of rain for starters. Don't tell us this won't make things any better. We don't want to hear it. Everything is deadly bone dry. This will wonderfully replenish the environment here. In the next section we will go into the alliance much more thoroughly. Now as we head into the next section, we will present the backstory of the alliance. Once you see and survey the data for yourself, you may well realize how much you have been lied to, and how interesting the story really is. The cabal has been playing the game of information saturation, bombarding the alternative media with shocking and false headlines to distract us. The real story is hiding out in the open. It is available if you know where to look. The mainstream media ignores it, but once you see it, everything makes sense. Radio show in 90 minutes. The remaining 2 sections are almost done, but not done enough to publish. I needed this out before we go on the air. So it will have to be broken up into 2 parts. Corey Good and I will be discussing the spheres, the alliance and the greater cosmic drama that is playing itself out at this time. The inside intel we have been leaking on this site is starting to come true. In a big way. These market crashes are precisely what Goods Insiders, and all the others out there, have been telling us is going to happen. It is very important to remain calm and focus on the positive as these events occur. We will definitely be discussing how much our consciousness affects reality. Don't miss the show. Go to jimmykirkratio.com for more information. And don't hate on him for the ads and talk in the first half hour. It's a real radio show, not a podcast.